Hey everyone, welcome back for lesson 4. Now we're going to get into some skills and we're going to start with the crisis skills. So even though these might not necessarily be the first skills that you use, because we do have early intervention skills, these are probably actually the most critical skills, because if you've missed your window of opportunity for early intervention, these are the ones that hopefully are going to get you out of the danger zone of the really intense crisis, so you can tolerate the episode of distress, bring it down as quickly as possible before you get to a regrettable action.
Yeah, so I would say these are skills you definitely want to get good at.
Yeah, and to keep it simple, we've limited it to the top 3 that you need to know. We've already kind of referenced this in the previous talk on the respiratory alkalosis and the biology of distress. That will explain to you why you need to use these skills. Now we're going to go into a little bit more detail of how you actually use the skills. So the first one is pause breathing. So the function of this, as you've already talked about, is to retain some of the CO2 so that you're not expelling too much of it and screwing up your pH.
When you're panicked and hyperventilating, you're breathing too quick, okay? And you're breathing off too much CO2. This is the solution.
Yeah, so this one is, this is one of my favorites and probably my go-to, particularly if I've got a patient sitting in front of me and they're freaking out. This is the first one that I will use because I don't need anything. We don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to get anything. And when my patients get good enough at using it, this can be really subtle because you're actually breath holding for kind of the function of this for short periods, which you can do sitting at the dinner table at a restaurant or sitting on a bus when you're freaking out or whatever it is. This one's really subtle, it's really quick, you can do it anywhere and you don't need any extra equipment. So the way it works is a breath in for 2 seconds, and it doesn't need to be a because
you don't want it to be like anything like that. Yeah.
No, because then you bring in too much oxygen, which
that's neither here nor there. It's more, if you're breathing a big one in, you'll be breathing a big one out.
Then you're also going to have that tension, tightness in your chest of holding the big breath.
Yeah.
So it's just a normal breath in, and then it's a hold for 10 seconds. Now, what's happening? What's happening for that 10 seconds?
Well, for that 10 seconds, you're not eliminating any carbon dioxide and you're slowly producing some.
Yeah. And then it is a breath out for 3 seconds, which you've got 2, 10, 3. That's 15 seconds for an entire breath lap. Now, normal respiratory rates, 10 to 12 breaths per minute?
It's variable, but it's more like 12 to 15.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But if you're in panic, that's 20 to 25?
Oh, 20, 25, yeah.
Yeah. Here, we're getting it to 4.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if I'm working with a patient...
This is worth noting that. So instead of your breath rate being a normal 12, 15 per minute, it's 4 per minute. Instead of being a panicked 25 per minute, it's 4 per minute.
Yeah.
So it's massive, massive reduction in respiration.
Yeah. So if I'm working with a patient, so if there's any psychologists or clinicians or anything out there watching this, and so if I've got a patient in front of me, can you panic breathe for a minute for me? Okay, Al, I need eyes on me. We need to slow your breath down. I need you to take a breath in, and I'm going to ask you to hold it for me. Can you take a breath in for me and hold? Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. You're too compliant. Most of my patients can't actually hold it that much because when they're in the hyperventilation, as much as your body needs to hold on to the CO2, that first breath or two, you're probably not actually going to get it to 10 seconds, right? So they'll take the breath in, they'll hold it. Maybe they make it to 7 and then it's gone out. I'm like, that's okay. Breath out and another breath in, and I'll just keep coaching them through it. And it's usually by the 3rd breath, I can get them to 10 seconds. When I'm coaching someone through this, because they're really panicking, my voice, I'm quite direct. I mean, I am anyway. But I'm quite direct. I need them to hear me. I'm not fluffing. I'm not, oh, you poor thing. It's just, Al, eyes on me. I need you to hold your breath. Follow my numbers. Count with me. I'm being really direct, getting straight to the point. If they're sitting in a chair, I'll kind of duck and I'll get under their eye line. So I don't want to be standing over you. That'll probably bring you distress up. But I'll coach them through and I'll be counting out loud. So breath in, 2, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, out, 2, 3. For that first count, I'm doing it pretty quick, but as they're starting to slow down, I will drop my tone and I'll also drop my pace. I'm like, okay, good. 2, 3, 4, 5. So as they're starting to settle, I will settle. So I'm kind of matching them at their pitch, and then as they come down, I come down, and then I'm kind of guiding them down as well with my tone of, okay, another breath in, 2, hold 2, because they're quiet now. They're not huffing. So I don't need to be loud and trying to catch their attention. I've already got their attention. So I will do it as a way of kind of helping them. And then as they're following my voice, it almost comes like that guided meditation. They've got an anchor point. They've got something to hold on to or focus on that keeps them. Usually I would go for between 6 and 8 of these cycles, depending on how elevated the patient is. Also depending on how skillful they are. If they know how to do it, I might coach them through the first 4 and say, okay, keep going with that for another 2 minutes, do another 8 cycles for me. And I can let them, because usually I'm in group, so I'll let them keep going with that, and then I've got to turn my attention back to other people. But if I'm in private practice, then they've got my undivided attention. And we'll keep going until they feel safe. And I'll usually check with them. Are you feeling okay now, or do you need to keep going with this? And I'll let them tell me where their end point is.
Okay, so once they say, yeah, I'm feeling calm or back to normal or whatever.
Yeah.
Just for your information, that hyperventilating that I was doing at the start, I actually started
Got
to...
lightheaded?
Yeah, I got lightheaded from that. And so that was 10, 20 seconds maybe.
No, not even.
Not even, right,
Not
okay.
even.
Yeah, so that's interesting, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
and it took me, and when I was in that state, you were explaining it, and I was like, gee, I'm actually not quite with it. So I had to hold my breath for a fair bit of that. I was essentially doing the pause breathing while you were explaining it.
Look how
just
subtle
so I
it
could,
is.
Just so I could normalise my concentration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it follows this: in, hold, out, in, hold, out, in, hold, out. Now, some of you might have heard of belly breathing. Some of you might have also heard of square breathing. We don't teach square breathing simply because it's in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4, and you actually hold on the out breath, which is counterintuitive because what we want is kind of that retention of the CO2 as opposed to the exhale. So we don't tend to teach the square breathing for panic. And also belly breathing, it's a very low and slow, and it is a big breath in and a big breath out, which again is an indicator for panic. So I teach it as pause breathing for panic, belly breathing for baseline. So if you're not hyperventilating and belly breathing works well for you, go for it. Square breathing works well, go for it. But as soon as you're into that hyperventilation, it needs to switch to this.
Okay. Yep, I agree. And I would say, it's not actually critical which of those things you do, whether it's square breathing or this. If the breathing rate's slower, you're where you need to be. We prefer this one, okay? But, some people swear by square breathing. That's fine. You have to stop your square breathing if it's working for you.
Burst exercise. Now, you've already talked about the rationale for this in the biology one, as we want to move the muscles because the muscles produce CO2. This is just a reminder and some ideas of what does that look like? Because if you're sitting at the family dinner table and Uncle Fred has said something invalidating or obnoxious and you're kind of getting distressed, you may not be able to excuse yourself to go for a sprint down the street because it's 8 o'clock at night and it's dark and it's raining. So pause breathing, I think, would be the first option. But if that's not working for you for whatever reason, what options do you have for daytime, for nighttime, for inside, for outside? So you're a fan of using the stairs. So if you've got a patient in your office that's getting distressed, you take them up and down the fire stairs.
Well, only because it's the most convenient thing. So that's what
my
you need
point.
to think. What's going to be the most convenient thing for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got other patients who will do skipping. I've had
like
skipping
rope.
rope. Yeah, skipping rope. I've had someone where we were in a group setting and very skillfully the patient said, Jess, I'm getting a bit distressed at the moment. Do you mind if I do some star jumps? Go for it. So she stood in the corner of the room and did about 20 star jumps. Went, okay, I'm good now, and sat back down in the chair and kept going. And it was brilliant because it was so skillful.
Yeah.
And everyone in the room was on board because it was a distress course, and everyone in the room got to see, hey, that works.
Yep.
So it might be you excuse yourself to the room and you do some burpees or you do some star jumps or whatever, up and down stairs. If we've got exercise bikes around in the hospital that we work in, so patients will get on that.
Yeah, and the way to think about it is anything that would make you, if you're calm right now, what would it take to make you huff and puff? Okay, because that's a sign that you're producing lots of CO2. Okay, so whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Okay, any physical activity. Now, I mentioned in the biology of distress, some things sort of feel more more appropriate to different emotional states. So fear states, doing stuff with your lower body seems to feel better. So sprinting or running or skip roping seems to feel better. And if you're in an anger state, punching bag, push-ups, weights sort of feels better, but either one will work for whatever situation. Just some sort of feel more correct, I'd say. Yep.
Okay. And the last one we're going to talk about for your crisis skills is the TIPP technique, but I just want to remind you of the mammalian dive reflex. So you talked about this in the biology talk of this is a technique specifically for activating the vagus nerve and getting your parasympathetic nervous system working, and it works by activating this mammalian dive reflex. So this is a reflex that all mammals have, and it is activated largely when you submerge into cold water. Because as soon as, and if you've ever had this experience of where you've kind of dived into a cold pool or you've dived in at the beach or whatever, and you have that momentary thing of, oh my God, that's cold, but you're underwater. So you're not saying, oh my God, that's cold, because you're holding your breath, but your body goes into, oh my God, we have to conserve energy and oxygen because we don't know when our next breath is coming and this is really cold and we need to keep our core warm. So what it does is as soon as you go underwater, well, obviously your breath rate drops because you're holding your breath.
Well, it goes to zero,
It does, because you're underwater. But also all of the kind of blood flow from your extremities will all come gushing into your core, and it'll settle everything down very, very quickly as an energy conservation. So instead of being really, really elevated and burning all this energy, it's suddenly conserving energy and draws everything in. Now we can hack that by using the TIPP technique, which is where we mimic this dive response by getting you into a downward position, by applying cold to the receptors in your brain that tell you receptors in your body that tell your brain you're underwater, which is here in the bridge of your nose, and by holding your breath so we have the respiratory rate down to zero. And by mimicking the mammalian dive reflex, we activate the parasympathetic nervous system, activate your vagus nerve, and drop your distress down. I had a patient do this once. She called me on the phone. She's completely freaking out. I couldn't understand a word she was saying. I said, stop, get an ice pack. I'll wait. So I stayed on the phone for her while she got her ice pack. I'm like, all right, sit down, talked her through the steps. And when she came back up, she'd finished that technique. Her response was, it feels like the reset button for my brain.
Nice.
And I use this one all the time with patients. So, you up for a demo?
Okay. Do we have an ice pack?
We will get one.
Okay.
Let us show you how this works. So Al's going to demonstrate how to use the TIPP technique, ice pack technique, whatever it is you want to call it. So we've just had him doing some star jumps and some push-ups, trying to get a bit elevated. And you've got my watch on. So what are you registering at? Oh, you dropped. You're at 92 at the moment.
Yeah.
But let's demonstrate this and see whether or not we can get your heart rate to drop, because it's an easy metric for us to kind of demonstrate, right? So the way I want you to do this is we've got to mimic a dive position. So I want you to scoot your butt forward as far as you can on the chair.
Yep.
Okay. Give me your glasses, please. Thank you. Put this on. Now, where it needs to go is across your sinuses. What was the nerve you called it?
Trigeminal.
Trigeminal nerve, sure. So what that means is it needs to be across your sinus path, so hitting your eyebrows and also underneath your eyes. And you want like a gentle pressure so it's actually contacting your eyebrows. Not here. This doesn't work. All right, head between your knees, hold your breath. Around it, so we're activating the vagus nerve by applying pressure. When you're ready. Oh.
Measuring.
How do you feel?
Yeah, pretty calm.
Pretty calm. Some people find that like this ice pack is straight out of the freezer. Some people find that that's too much.
Yeah, it was a bit.
Okay. So you can also use it but just keep the ice pack in the fridge. So the theory is that it needs to be below 10 degrees. Most refrigerators run at about 5 degrees Celsius. Yeah, that one's probably like 1 or 2 degrees Celsius at the moment because it's been out for a couple of minutes. Yeah. I find that this...
If it's out of the freezer...
If it's out of the freezer...
It's minus 20 in the freezer.
Sure. I find that for most patients, it's a brain reset. And I think part of it is actually the shock value from the cold.
It's a bit, yeah.
It's really hard to be distressed and freaking out while you've got a cold pack on your face. It may have quite a good distraction effect on it as well. You want your glasses back on?
Yeah, thank you. Well, it has come down, but it's in the low 80s, so it hasn't come down drastically, but I definitely can feel it.
Yeah.
But mind you, I artificially stimulated my heart rate by running around and jumping around, so I've probably got a bit of oxygen debt too. So yeah.
Good. Okay. That is what the ice pack technique looks like. So downward position, butt as far forward on the chair as you can manage so you can get your head between your knees. Hold your breath while you're down. Sit up slowly. Make sure it's across your sinuses, not your forehead. It doesn't work on your forehead. Sit up slowly because you're going to be dizzy. 20 seconds, we stop.
Panic attack.
Cool.
Okay, so from that technique, we can see it only takes 20 seconds.
It's pretty quick.
And an ice pack.
Yep.
It has a pretty strong response. It's quite quick. It's one of those things that you can reuse over and over if you need to. Probably 2 or 3 times is enough for most people. Don't use it if you're pregnant. Don't use it if you've got cardio or blood pressure issues. They're contraindicated. Try the other ones for that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and you've got the instruction sheet that you can download. Stick this one on the fridge. If you know that this is something that works for you, share it with the people that live in your household to the point that when they see you getting distressed, they just go, here's an ice pack, and you just do it without having to think or plan or anything for it. So download that one, stick it on the fridge, and we will see you for the next lesson on early intervention skills.